All right, what an interesting morning it's been, right? What a crazy morning it's been. It's been a whirlwind of emotions. Now, yesterday I put out this video, The Truth About Kevin Feige and Star Wars. And in it, I laid out my theory that the reason why they released the information that Feige would be handling a Star Wars movie for Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm had everything to do with the whole fact that Sony said that the reason why the Spider-Man deal fell through was because Disney had Bob Iger stretched too thin. That Bob Iger could not handle Spider-Man movie with doing the Disney Plus shows, Marvel Phase 4, and everything else that they're working on in regards to getting X-Men and Deadpool, Fantastic Four in the MCU. And the thing is, they're not wrong. The dude's got a lot going on, but they kind of threw a wrench in that argument by putting him in charge of Star Wars. There's been rumors that Feige would have been the person to take over Star Wars going back about as far as June of last year from what I've seen, but there's been nothing absolutely concrete. And the reason why I bring it up was because Sony countered that announcement of Feige working with Star Wars by saying, hey, we're doing a Madam Web movie, to which case the internet went, wait, huh? Like, why do I care about this? Like, what's going on? I don't understand what's happening. Why are we having this discussion about Madam Web? Nobody wants it, which is true. Nobody ultimately wanted it. So that's why today they announced that Spider-Man is staying in the MCU, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I have been enjoying the tweet storms from people saying, you called it, Matt. You called it. And I did. I did. Now, I'm not trying to be on my high horse here. Listen, let me say first and foremost, this is a win for everybody. All right, fans and business. This is a win. This is what it needed to be. I say mostly for fans because we are going to get a proper conclusion to the Homecoming trilogy. We're going to be able to get the full arc of that trilogy of what fans want. And I think they both know that's what fans are after. And I think that's a big issue. Now, I'm also kind of curious how much of this had to do with the fact that Far From Home just came out on home video and maybe it's not selling as well. I mean, fan backlash was pretty loud and that could have constituted to low sales. We're not going to get those numbers for a while, but we'll be able to take a look at them when we will. Anyway, this is what it says here. After briefly breaking up, Sony Pictures and Marvel have found their way back together again. On Friday, the two companies jointly announced that Marvel Studios and its president, Kevin Feige, will produce the third film in the Spider-Man Homecoming series. It will once again feature Tom Holland reprising the role. The rumor mill roared back to life this week with hints that the two companies were close to brokering an agreement. And I think so. People have been saying that, though, for like literally now over a month. Right, like about a month and a half, they've been saying that now. They're like, "Oh, the deal." You know, I think there was always a deal on the back end, but really, it was all about Feige and Amy Pascal. It was really Amy Pascal. Pascal was the one I think working overtime trying to broker the deal because it was originally her deal anyway. Tony Vinciquerra and Tom Rothman have kind of been more like, we can do this on our own. Tom Rothman has been nowhere in the equation in general. Mostly Tony Vinciquerra that's been talking about it. You know, because he's a Sony CEO, so they're trying to go, no, but the big guy's talking about it, like Bob Iger talks about it. So clearly this means that they know what's going on and that they've got a good take on what's going to be going down. But again, I'd like to remind you, this is Sony we're talking about here, and they have very little credibility in the industry when it comes to holding franchises. And I'm not alone in thinking that. Now it says here that over the summer, news broke that Disney and Marvel parent company Sony, or Disney Marvel's parent company and Sony, had reached an impasse over a new financing deal. Disney wanted the film to be financed on a 50-50 basis, with Feige remaining in a consulting producer capacity. Sony is believed to propose keeping the arrangement under the current terms, which stipulate that Marvel receives about 5% of first dollar gross and all merchandising revenue. Now, again, just to quickly point that out, because for some reason, none of these articles are talking about the merchandising from where it really is. Back in 2011, Bob Iger brokered a deal with Sony through Amy Pascal, I think at the time, in order to basically do a trade for the merchandising rights. Sony was in a bad place. And when Sony wants to make Spider-Man movies, even though they have the rights to do it, they still have to pay a licensing agreement with Marvel in order to make it happen. What they did was they basically did a straight a transaction where Sony got no longer had to pay the licensing fee, and Marvel got all the merchandising rights back for Spider-Man. That was the deal. It was a straightforward transaction, and I've shown that in other videos. So that's really what that one is. And I think, again, that gets overlooked so often because people like to harp on that. Like, why Sony owns it? Why does Marvel or why does Disney get the merchandising? Because this was a deal from 8 years ago. It's just, again, it's information you have to know to be fully abreast of the situation. You have to know that. Anyway, the new deal was signed late Thursday night. Negotiations involved top players from both studios, including Sony Pictures chief Tom Rothman, Feige and Walt Disney Studios co-chair Alan Horn, and Alan Bergman. Wow, that is a big meeting of people right there. In exchange for lending Feige's producing prowess, Marvel and Disney will receive roughly 25% of the profits, according to that, and that's what they wanted. That's what Disney wanted. That is what they wanted. They wanted to do a co-financing deal of 25%. Right? That's what they had originally talked about. The 50% was a brash negotiation tactic that ultimately failed. But no, they wanted to do the 25-75. They wanted to. They're getting what they want. They're getting what they want. Anyway, Disney will retain its merchandising rights and will put up roughly a quarter of the finance. Exactly. They get exactly what they want. They get 25% and they get the co-financing, which is what they wanted. And honestly, Sony, this is the best deal you could have ever gotten for right now. All right. Like, for right now, you guys just saved yourself a little bit, especially when it comes to future Spider-Man films. This is the right call. And then as part of the arrangement, Spider-Man will also appear in one future Marvel Studios film. So they're finishing up the trilogy, which is great. They're going to give us a conclusion to that. And then he's probably going to be in another Avengers movie or something. Who knows? Who knows? I hope they don't waste it. I don't think they're going to waste it. But the thing is, though, that one more agreement, that's just for right now, right? They're going to go back to the table for the next one. But what they should do is they should really look at when if Venom 2 flops, if Morbius flops, if Madam Web flops, then they're going to go to the table and work with them. Anyway, so the film is scheduled for July 16th, 2021. Apparently, it is going to be considered Phase 4. Amy Pascal will also produce it through Pascal Pictures. That makes sense. She says here, "I'm thrilled that Spider-Man's journey to the MCU will continue, and that and I and all of us at Marvel Studios are very excited that we get to keep working on it." Feige said in a statement, "Spider-Man is a powerful icon and hero whose story crosses all ages and audiences around the globe. He also happens to be the only hero with the superpower to cross cinematic universes. So as Sony continues to develop their own Spidey-Verse, you never know what surprises the future might hold." This is Feige saying that. Now, if you recall, there was that press junket where they asked, "Oh, is Venom, is that going to be part of the Spider-Verse as well? Is this part of the MCU? Like, what's happening?" And Amy Pascal was basically like a flipper going, yes, it is. And Feige's all, shut up. Right? And then Feige here is the one saying that they're going to go and, like, who knows what the future might hold? Meaning it's all coming together. This is just phase one of breaking down the deal. This is just phase one of bringing it all under one roof. And I say that because I think the Apple purchase of Sony is going to be pretty high at this point. Anyway, Pascal was also euphoric. She says, "This is terrific. Peter Parker's story took a dramatic turn in Far From Home, and I could not be happier. We will all be working together again as we see where the journey goes." And the thing is, yeah, she's right. A lot of fans like that. Now, Marvel has licensed the rights to Spider-Man to Sony for nearly 2 decades, an agreement they forged prior to Disney's $4 billion acquisition. Sony achieved critical financial acclaim with the first round of Spider-Man movies, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Tobey Maguire. Its second effort, starring Andrew Garfield and directed by Mark Webb, were far less successful, sending the studio back to the drawing board. And that is a reminder here from Variety. Sony has mucked this up twice. So, basically, yeah, it's Sony knows that they were kind of screwed there. They know that they were kind of hosed there. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. One of the things to remember here ultimately is that when it comes to this story, when it comes to this information, and I might come across like a pompous ass, and that's fine, Sony screwed it up. Sony was made to look stupid. No one really backed Sony. You want to call Disney greedy? It's not really greedy. Disney originally wanted the deal they've got right now. That's why the deal wasn't pressed further. And they probably had all the power in the world to press that deal even further than what they got right now. They wanted a 25-75 split with a co-financing agreement, meaning they would get 25% of the profits on $1 billion movie. That ain't that bad, right? They would also handle the production of the film, and then they would alleviate Sony's financial responsibility. So Sony would have maybe a little bit more money, maybe that 25%, right? They could then invest into another Spider-Verse movie that could then be tangentially connected to the MCU, where they would then make more money. I mean, this is the thing. People that are sitting there and trying to argue this scenario, that Disney's being the greedy one here. I'm sure maybe in some aspects, perhaps I don't fully agree with all of that. But really what it boils down to is that Sony is terrible at making movies. They're terrible at running franchises. And they're in a position to where their financial burden will be alleviated. 25%, and not the best, but you know what? At the end of the day, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So you might as well take it. And then two, they get better fan, responses. There's more fan love because all that goodwill and good faith coming from the MCU over to Sony's movies, they need that. They absolutely need that. I mean, Venom did well in China. It did well here in the States too, but it did really well in China. And if there is no kind of tangential connection to the MCU or whatever, then obviously, like that's going to hurt it. But I do think that what we don't know yet, what they haven't told us yet, is that Peter Parker will be making an appearance in Venom 2. That much I believe, because when Feige says we don't know what surprises may hold, we don't know what's going to be coming down the pipeline, we can kind of guess and kind of see what exactly is happening there. And a lot of that is what I believe is going to be them trying to have him cross the cinematic universes. That was Feige's words. Those are chosen very carefully. So Spider-Man, Venom 2, I think is kind of confirmed at this point. Although it's who knows, it could be Peter on the run for a little bit out of New York. He ends up in San Francisco for a quick side adventure, then has to go back to New York, and that's where Spider-Man 3 picks up. I don't know. They could pull a Dark Knight Rises where he F's off for like 5 years. But I leave it to you, your thoughts, your opinions. Happy, sad, what do you think? I really am curious to know. So let me know down in the comments below. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, click that bell. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day, and peace out.